I'm back at Burbank Sports Cards, where I'm going to sit down again with the owner, Rob Veras, to talk about the National and the upcoming Burbank Card Show.
I'm feeling good.
So, Rob, we are just days away from the National now. I can't believe it's here. And,
super pumped.
And just a little over a month away from the next Burbank Card Show.
Don't even talk about that.
So,
it's creeping really quickly
It's getting
now.
close. So today, we're going to break down both of these for our audience out there. So first of all, the National. Now, you guys, you don't do a big booth at the National, right? But I imagine you've been going to these for quite a while.
I don't do any booth.
Yeah,
at
you
the
just
National.
kind of wander around and
wander around. Well, I've always been a big buyer at the National. Where literally we would buy pallets. We would buy out booths, just stack triple shoes, huge pallets, and have them shipped back.
Okay.
And that was our modus operandi for years. And I've literally been to the last two, and I didn't buy a single card just because so much stuff comes in here.
Yeah.
But, we don't set up there. It's just like, what do I bring? I mean, you look at my inventory, and what do I put on an 8-foot table?
Yeah.
You know, what's the point?
Yeah.
I'd much rather be on the floor, meeting and greeting, and just kind of seeing what's going on instead of being tied somewhere.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I've heard from other dealers the lift that's involved in getting all that inventory to the National. I know Joe Davis in Atlanta.
Sure.
Got baseballcards.com. Awesome dealer. I know you guys have known each other for a very long time.
Great guy.
You guys are both some of the OGs, of all the card shop owners. And Joe talks about, he does a big setup there. Every year he does, I don't know, he's probably does a whole square. He probably has 10 tables or something like that. And he always talks about he has to get a big truck and loads everything up, and then they have to leave, days ahead of time. And it's just a whole ordeal to get all that inventory there.
Yeah.
I guess if your shop's this busy as you guys are here once again on a Tuesday afternoon, then, you don't necessarily have to do that. But the National is the coming together, it seems like, of the sports card hobby every year. There's no other event like it.
No.
Although we're going to talk about your card, which I know is not going to be like
Nothing
your
like-
card
we're
show.
nothing like that.
But it's in size going to be the next biggest thing we've got to it.
Sure.
But what is the National like in your eyes? Like, to somebody who isn't part of the hobby or has never been before, how would you kind of describe the National experience?
It's the Super Bowl. It's something that you look forward to every single year. It's an amazing experience, whether you're a novice, whether you're just tagging along with a family member, or just a sports fan. It's just a sight to see.
Yeah.
Even beyond the tables, there's just so much going on. But if you're a collector, you need to make a trip at least once to the National to see what it's all about, because locally you're going to have shows and you're going to have the same guys, chances with the same inventory over and over again. But when you go to the National, the best dealers in the country are all converging. And in a lot of cases, they're actually saving up inventory that they might have bought a month or two prior to bring to the National and kind of debut it there. There's a lot of liquidity on the floor. Most of the bigger buyers are there. And it's just a way to meet people. So many people are on message boards or on IG that have never physically met before. It just is a great social ground as well to meet these people for the first time and deepen relationships and friendships.
Yeah.
I've been going for decades, and I look forward to it. When I come back on a Monday, I'm already excited about the next one.
Yeah.
Because I just have so much fun at these things.
And then you have to wait a whole year, which is
exactly.
But I'm excited. Yeah, Atlantic City last year, other than the city, which obviously got that got a lot of criticism from folks who went to it.
Rough.
But the actual experience of the show itself was just as awesome as ever.
Yeah.
And this year in Chicago, I didn't realize that show floor in Chicago at the Rosemont Convention Center, I didn't realize it could get any bigger. I thought that the National had already taken the full footprint.
Right.
But then what I found out is that there was actually around the corner, was another kind of exhibit area that was always just blocked off. And now this year they're taking down the wall between the two, and the show's going to go all the way around like a horseshoe.
Right.
It's going to be 33% larger than the last time it was in Chicago 2 years ago, 20% larger than the Atlantic City show last year. It's going to be the biggest national by show floor square footage in history.
Yeah, I think that I had no idea either, and it's really shocking to me now that I'm on the other side of the fence doing these things that kind of space was actually accessible.
Yeah.
Granted, before COVID, it was the right size. It was basically the size it should have been, but it's after their success in 22 in Atlantic City, they saw that there's a call for a larger space. I'm shocked, really, they hadn't gotten that space before. But the demand is there, and, the Autograph Pavilion takes up a big chunk of the space that they got there. And in my opinion, I think it's kind of like what Fanatics is doing, is they're getting rid of the middleman as much as possible because those tables go for so much more on the secondary market. They want to be able to sit there and say, hey, why don't we just find a way to get more tables on this floor and be able to keep that money where it belongs with us instead of people that have had the table for years but just can't turn down the money to just flip the table.
Yep.
And I think that's healthier for everybody. And I think that everyone that's in this, should have an experience of setting up at a major card show like that and seeing what it's like to be on the other side of the counter. I think it's an amazing experience. And if they could open up more tables and folks that have never set up at a card show before can look at this and say, this is going to be an amazing experience, I'd like to do my first national.
Yeah, I mean, as anyone, if you're into selling cards at all,
sure.
What is, as you said, is the Super Bowl. It's the best place to go and set up. It'd be absolutely incredible. Are you surprised that we are now, 2 years plus removed from when secondary market prices really peaked out in early 2021? We saw prices, quickly drop throughout a lot of 2021, 2022. They've stabilized some now. But are you surprised with how the secondary market's been over the last couple of years that we are now looking at the biggest national that the hobby has ever seen?
No, I'm not surprised because I think there's more people in the hobby now than there's ever been before. The market's going to go up and down like that. But again, you're seeing on a Tuesday what this place can do. Our store traffic never waned. And if anything else, it's actually gotten bigger. I think that a lot of the pricing in 21 and all that priced a lot of people out of the market. I think they're seeing things now where these PSA 10 base cards that used to be $300 are now $70. All of a sudden, more people can afford those types of cards. And I think the reality is people are going to have to earn their keep a little bit more and have to put less expensive stuff onto their tables. And I think that's going to be the key to success. You go to the National and you see somebody with value boxes, there's a swarm of people around them. You see a lot of tables that are just high end, you might just walk past them.
Yeah.
And so I think that the National's always been good for value boxes. And me personally, I see the amount of money that goes back and forth with the buying and the selling in here. It just hasn't changed. Just the market has corrected. And I think it was healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that allows more people to partake where they can go to Target and Walmart and see products on the shelves at the prices that they're supposed to be instead of 3X where the return on investment's nil.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it's done this to the extent where more people can partake, $50 goes a lot farther in this industry than it did 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One thing that's kept me so optimistic about the hobby and where it's going is it's hard for me to think of any other industry where prices would have fallen as much as they have, on certain things in that industry. And yet a lot of people who took a bath on the value of their cards falling, yet they all stuck around, or the vast majority of them stuck around, and then new people continue to come in. And as you said, you've got a as big, if not bigger, of a base of enthusiastic participants in the hobby today than you did a few years ago, or really even at any point over the last couple of years. And that's despite that happening with the market. And so to me, that's just like a great sign. It's like if that many people can suffer a drop in value, but love it so much that they want to continue to collect and continue to buy and continue to enjoy it, then it speaks really well to the long term.
I think the vast majority of people that are in this hobby today, and even in 2021, are at their heart collectors.
Sure.
I think the people that just came in for financial means, they might not have stuck around. But I think, again, the silent majority of folks that have a passion for it. I mean, I get here 3 hours before opening. I can't wait to get my hands on cards. I'm just a big card dork. And I think that most of the people in this hobby / industry wish that they could do this 11 hours a day because they get so much joy out of the cards. And I think that goes, whether it's my customers, whether it's people that set up at shows, whatever it happens to be, the joy hasn't gone away. In a lot of cases, they can buy a lot more stuff for the money. You can rip a lot more product now than you could rip 2 years ago for the same amount of money. And I think that that's a positive thing. And I'm super bullish. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing in here. I wouldn't have a list of 50 people that are going to sell us cards on a Tuesday if we weren't exceptionally bullish on the industry. I wouldn't be doing a card show. I wouldn't be having 40 million card warehouse, and I wouldn't have this retail store unless I had every confidence and confidence within myself, more than anything else, because we're going to provide an experience that no matter what, any of the noise that's happening outside these four walls, as long as I'm giving an experience here, we'll always be busy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of experiences, that is one area where I feel like the National could ramp up. I've gone to some of the big shows in the trading card game space, Pokemon and that type of thing. And those shows do a better job of providing an experience, both in the show and outside of the show. I went to a Collecticon where they had literally a concert going on stage at one end of it. Like, I went to a Gen Con where they had a food truck and beer, kind of a beer garden set up right outside the show with live music going into the night, and people, hanging out and hanging, drinking beers and everything. And the National doesn't have that. Now I know they have the management group's about to turn over. This is the last year of the current management group. Next year they have a new management group, and I know they seem interested in turning into more of an experience. Do you hope it goes that direction?
I sure hope so. Joe Drellick's a friend of mine. We've had multiple conversations on this, and I think he's looking to modernize it. And I think that's probably the key term is to bring it. I mean, how am I going to state this? 4 or 5 years ago, we were catering to 45-year-old white males. That was the demographic. And the demographic has changed so radically in the last 3 years, and it's gotten so much younger, and it's gotten so much more diverse. And women play such a big role in the industry that we need to look at our major events and go, this needs to be more than just transactional buying and selling of cards. And they realize that, and they have the highest podium. They've got the most capital behind it, and they have the biggest brand in the industry. And I think that they'll do that. Right now, they're just stuck in Chicago and Cleveland. Atlantic City, I don't think they're ever going back there. Thank God. You take your life in your own hands there. But they're stuck in the Midwest right now. I think that they're going to start looking at other cities. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the voting membership there, because the dealers actually choose where it goes. So I'm not sure how that's all going to work. But at the very least, I know, just knowing Joe, that he's got those things in the back of his head right now going, experience, destination are critical. And, we try to provide that here every single day. I don't need to have a rock band in the parking lot so much, but I need to make sure that people can lose themselves in an experience for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and leave their troubles at the door. And when you go to the National, you walk in, you're like a 14-year-old kid. I mean, let's just face it. You are excited. You are giddy. And if there were things outside of the convention center that are sponsored by different companies, I think that would be absolutely tremendous. And I can see that. I mean, I think the new group is going to take things to another level, and I think that's a win for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% for sure. Well, speaking of experience, you've got your own card show coming up, the Burbank Card Show. I think it's August 31st this year through early
September 3rd. Yeah,
September 3rd. So you're hitting it's Labor Day weekend, and it's going to be this time around. It's going to be at the Anaheim Convention Center, which is right across from Disneyland.
Literally.
So this is big time. And you've rented a huge amount of the show floor. What, 200,000 square feet? Is that
yeah?
right?
It's actually plus when. It's a little bigger, but yeah.
Which is incredible. So this is now, this iteration, this is the third time you're doing it.
Third show.
This one will be significantly larger than the last two.
Yeah.
The last one was significantly larger than the one before.
Sure.
This one will be significantly larger than the last one, both of them. And what should people expect, first of all? Like how do you want the Burbank Card Show experience to be like for people who attend?
I think it's the best destination in the country. I'm hoping it's the nicest facility it's ever been in before. I'm hoping that families will travel for this because there's so much more to do. Literally within a mile, there's just endless different opportunities for an experience outside of what we're doing. There's going to be a lot more tables. And the pitch that we have, or at least I have, is it's a great opportunity for someone to get a table and to have that experience behind the counter where they can buy cards at less price, at a lower price. They could be on the other side of the counter for that. It's 4 days. It's Thursday night through Sunday. There's going to be a lot of floor time. And I think that we're trying to take the Burbank experience, there's people just walking in, and scale it. And I think that's what the success was at the first show. And I think that was the success of the second show, is folks just, they love the brand. And I think that the uniqueness of our show is it's built on a brand, built on a location that 7 days a week is there. I don't think that most shows have a face to their show. And I think that's where we're kind of different. And with this show, we're just blowing it up. Everything's just bigger. The kids event is going to be huge. The kids event space is almost the same size as our first show. We're putting a lot of emphasis on the kids there. Tables, we're thinking 900 tables.
Wow, that's big.
That's
big.
Huge.
That's going to be that's going to be definitively the largest card show in the country outside of the National.
Yeah, we think so. We just keep selling out of space, and like the National, they're growing. You know, they are taking a bigger space, and it's a risk. I mean, Anaheim's expensive. We did this is funny. It's the Burbank Card Show, but it's the third different city that we've been in.
The first one was in Burbank.
Yeah.
So true to your name.
True to my name. We just needed a bigger boat, as the saying goes. But yeah, Ontario was amazing. Ontario was much easier to deal with. Anaheim's a whipping.
Yeah.
I mean, good God. It's like, I wish I knew everything we were jumping into when we signed the papers with these guys. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be, the West Coast needs this. Not every family, I would say 80 to 85% of the people that walk in this store aren't going to the National. Never been to the National, might never go to the National. What does it cost for a family of four to go to Chicago?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Where does that money go? It doesn't go to the tables on the
No,
floor.
you're right, yeah.
Airlines and hotels.
Flights and hotels and restaurants and everything. Before you even get on the floor, you probably have spent a good portion of your budget.
Yeah, exactly. And we haven't had a major card show out here since 2006 National. This is the best market in the country, Geoff. And the thing that kind of spurred this whole thing is I never had any interest in this, less than 0%. But I'm sitting there going, all these folks are flying to Dallas for a card show because Texas was open at the time. And I'm like, how much money are they spending on airfare and hotels to go to that show when the best market in the country is sitting right here? And I had a conversation with a guy that runs smaller shows in Southern California. I'm like, we need to do something in LA that keeps people here, or at least gives them an option. And I had no idea how it would work. And the first show, I was terrified. I'm like, I knew we sold all the tables, but who's going to show up? Because it doesn't matter how many tables you sell. It's how many paying customers you can get through the door to support all of those dealers, and it was terrifying
Yep.
to me. And then we were a success, and then we went.
Well, you had the opposite problem. You had so many people show up that the line was crazy and it was insane. Yeah,
it was a first world problem,
Yeah.
but still a problem. And then Ontario took care of the line situation, and it was kind of right sized. I think it was packed on Friday and Saturday. It was crazy. And then Anaheim was the next progression. That's where we wanted to go, and it's a 2-floor facility. Built in 2017. It's not the normal old concrete convention center. It's a beautiful new space right next door, fully carpeted. It's gorgeous. And originally, the top floor was available, and it was 100,000 square feet. And I'm like, you know what? It's a lot of money, but I think that's the right progression. Lower floor becomes available, and my partners are like, Rob, we should take it. I'm like, what, are you insane?
Right.
I mean, the top floor was a stretch. I mean, that's a huge level up. Anaheim in your third show. And they're like, and now I'm sitting there going, thank God we got the second floor, because, we already maxed out the top floor without even talking about corporate and booths and all the other things that we want to do. So super pumped. Corporate, everyone's coming back. Everyone's leveling up bigger from what they did last time. And, the West Coast is excited. The Pacific Rim is excited. You think about all the money in Asia.
That is true.
What's the closest stop?
Yep.
It's L.A. I mean, come to L.A., wait on a long layover, fly another 4 or 5 hours into the country. It's kind of nice where it's just one hop instead of multiple hops. And we got the Asian Pacific communities really excited about this, and people flying in from everywhere. So we've built something big. We'll continue to do this to whatever scale we have to do it to satisfy the demand on the West Coast.
It's really exciting. You think twice a year is going to be the cadence for this?
Yeah. We love Ontario, and people are like, Ontario? Even people from this area thought we were doing a card show in Canada.
Right.
Literally, because Ontario is one of those cities that you just drive through to get to Vegas.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it in Ontario. That wasn't an option. I'm not doing this in Ontario. But then I saw the facility. I'm like, this place is gorgeous. And then I realized that the airport is an international airport, and it's 5 minutes away. Inexpensive hotel rooms and dining options everywhere. And everyone that went there go, Rob, this place is amazing. And so we're going to be doing it the week and after this time, the Super Bowl. And everyone's like, you're doing it during the Super Bowl. And I'm like, dude, there is no other space. Everything else is sold out. They actually bumped someone from that weekend just so we could get that weekend. Now we've proven to Ontario the kind of business we can bring to the city. And so they've really opened their arms up to us. We'll have the whole building this time, not just one room, but we'll have the entire space.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's really exciting. It was a very nice convention center, and being able to stay so close to it, I was able to walk back and forth every day to go to the convention center. It was a nice spot to do it. But I'm really excited about Anaheim. I'm going to be bringing my kids. My wife's coming to do Disneyland. She's going to go with my daughter to Disneyland while me and the boys, go around the show floor during the days and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to meet up afterwards. It's going to be a great destination. So
I think Anaheim's kind of magical in hobby lore.
Yeah.
I really don't think you say Atlantic City and it's magical in hobby lore. I think the biggest attendance-wise show was 1991
in Anaheim.
And Anaheim,
yeah, that's what they say.
The 4 nationals that have been in LA, I think it's 4. The first one was in Anaheim, and I believe it was Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend and Memorial Weekend were always the 2 biggest shows in Southern California, going back to the Jack Petrozelli shows back in the 80s and 90s. And it's kind of like that last blowout of summer.
Yep.
And
right before football season.
Right before football season.
With the growth of football cards, that's got to be something that's changed, I imagine.
Yeah.
Here in your store, like over the last 5 or 10 years,
it
seems like football cards have exploded in popularity compared to where they were a few years ago. They were a distant third in the hobby, I felt like, but behind basketball and baseball. And now football seems, at least in our data, football is outselling all of it at times.
Right. I think that there just seems to be so much basketball out there.
Yeah.
And there's so many Zions and so many
I think that's
LaMelo
slowed things
balls
down
and all
a little
that.
bit.
And you go out and you try to find yourself, some of these other players that are stars. I mean, go out. If you collect George Kittle cards, just go out there and try to find George Kittle or Travis Kelce or almost anybody,
Very low.
and it's harder to find their cards than it is for almost any other basketball guy out there. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
And the market in general, I mean, I'm just looking around this place and I'm looking at the diversity, I'm looking at the ages, and I'm like, it's healthy.
Yeah.
It's healthy. We just have to have, in my opinion, what we also need, and we don't have it, and it worries me a little bit, is that the people that make the biggest decisions in this industry don't always come from this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that is a little bit concerning, because that's pretty much always been the case at the manufacturer level, is like, we need an executive, let's bring them in from this other side. And that's fine. They're brilliant people. They'll know how to grow the business. But in a lot of cases, we're missing that institutional knowledge. In a lot of cases, that people have done it day after day, after year, after decade after decade, and actually have the interactions with the customers, actually have these experiences that you really can't go to school for or come from another industry for. And whether it's just some kind of counsel or they just hire some of the brighter minds that have been doing this. I don't want it personally, but I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there that are kind of being ignored, and there's a lot of people that maybe have only done it a limited amount of time that maybe have too much of their headspace.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those concerns that I think if we really want to 3X, 5X, 10X, there's a lot of knowledge out there that can be tapped that maybe isn't viewed as the sexy knowledge, but it's the knowledge that have kept those guys in business for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So,
well, speaking of knowledge, you've been an incredible source of it, Rob. I appreciate you getting me even more excited now about the National and about your Burbank Card Show.
Huge events.
They're both going to be huge events, and certainly excited about being at both. And hopefully those of you out there are able to come to both as well. The National just around the corner in Chicago, and then the Burbank Card Show August 31st through September the 3rd.
Yeah, and the one other thing I didn't touch on, the cool thing about that weekend is Sundays are always kind of iffy at card shows, especially with people that traveled. Monday's a holiday.
Yeah, it's Labor Day.
So I think a lot of people will be able to stick around for the whole time on Sunday.
That's good.
Which I think will be a little bit different. So
good.
Kind of pumped about that as well.
For sure. Well, you guys got to get there. Check out the Burbank Card Show, and hope to see you at the National as well. Appreciate you watching. Take care.